Most people think strength means never needing anyone. That's not it at all. Real strength, the kind that actually holds up, isn't about isolation. It's about self-sufficiency. It's knowing that even when no one is in your corner, you still have yourself. And that changes everything. Here's what nobody tells you up front. The strongest people you'll ever meet didn't get that way by accident. They went through something. Quietly. Alone. And they came out different on the other side. As Carl Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. That's exactly what this video is about. We're going to walk through 10 things that genuinely strong people learn to do without depending on anyone else. Some of these will feel uncomfortable. Good. That means they're worth your attention. Before we go further, if this resonates with you, hit that like button, drop a comment, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Don't skip any part of this video. Every single point builds on the last. Number 1. They sit with silence without running from it. Most people fill every quiet moment with noise. A podcast, scrolling, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. Why? Because silence asks questions we're not ready to answer. Strong people learn, sometimes painfully, that the noise is the escape. An escape keeps you stuck. Blaise Pascal wrote in the 1600s that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. That was true then. It's arguably more true now. Learning to sit with silence isn't passive. It's one of the more active things a person can do. It means tolerating discomfort without immediately medicating it with distraction. Start with 5 minutes. No phone, no music, just you and your own mind. It will feel strange at first, maybe even a little unbearable. That feeling is information. Number 2. They make decisions without seeking constant approval. Here's a quiet pattern that holds a lot of people back. They make a decision, feel uncertain, then immediately look for someone, anyone, to confirm it was the right call. That's not decision-making. That's outsourcing your judgment. Strong people learn to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing immediately whether they were right. They decide, they act, and then they live with the outcome, without requiring someone else's applause to feel okay about it. Psychologist Carl Rogers suggested that when people are truly functioning at their best, they trust their own experience as a valid source of data. Your gut isn't always right, but it's yours. Learning to trust it, while staying open to feedback, is a skill, one that takes practice. Number 3. They process pain without performing it. This one is uncomfortable to hear, so stay with it for a second. There's a difference between processing pain and broadcasting it. Strong people learn, usually after broadcasting it a few times and getting burned, that not every wound needs an audience. That doesn't mean suppressing emotion. Suppression is actually the opposite of strength. It's avoidance wearing a tough-looking mask. What it means is learning to feel something, move through it, and let it transform into something useful, without needing external validation at every stage. Stoic philosophy, particularly in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, returns to this again and again. Suffering that is examined becomes wisdom. Suffering that is performed often just stays suffering. Number 4. They set boundaries without guilt. This is one that takes most people years to figure out. And even then, it never gets fully comfortable. Saying no, genuinely, clearly, without a 3-paragraph explanation, is one of the most disorienting things a person can learn to do. Because somewhere along the way, most of us were taught that being agreeable was the same as being good. It isn't. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability suggests that people who lack clear boundaries often end up resentful, not because others took too much, but because they gave too much without being asked. That's a painful but clarifying distinction. Strong people learn to say, "I can't do that," and let the discomfort of the other person's reaction just exist, without fixing it, without over-explaining. Number 5. They motivate themselves when no one is watching. External motivation, a coach, a cheering crowd, a deadline, is a legitimate tool, but it has an obvious flaw. It disappears. The job of building internal motivation is quieter and less glamorous than most productivity content will admit. It's not about hacks. It's about developing a relationship with the work itself, finding the part of a task that you actually care about, even slightly, and anchoring to that. Angela Duckworth's research on grit points to something specific. The people who sustain effort over time aren't necessarily more talented. They've just connected their work to something that feels personally meaningful, not to what's impressive to others. Strong people learn to move forward even when it's boring, even when no one's clapping, even when results are slow. Number 6. They celebrate small wins privately. Here's something that sounds simple, but runs counter to a lot of what social media has trained us to feel. Not every win needs to be shared to count. In fact, and this is worth sitting with, research in social psychology suggests that sharing goals and victories prematurely can actually reduce the internal motivation to continue. The social reward substitutes for the real one. Strong people learn to acknowledge their own progress. Quietly, to themselves. They mark the small step, feel it for a moment, and keep moving. That internal acknowledgement builds something external praise can't. Self-sourced confidence. Number 7. They manage their own emotional regulation. This might be the most underrated item on this list. Emotional regulation doesn't mean staying calm all the time. That's not realistic, and frankly, it sounds exhausting. What it means is developing the capacity to notice when you're spiraling, pause, and choose a response rather than just reacting. Viktor Frankl, who survived imprisonment in Nazi concentration camps, wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies human freedom. That's not a metaphor. That's a skill you can actually build. Strong people learn to find that space through breathing, through movement, through deliberate pause, before they react in ways they'll later regret. Number 8. They entertain themselves without needing external stimulation. This sounds lighter than the others, but it isn't. The inability to be comfortably alone, without entertainment, without company, without constant input, is actually one of the more telling signs of emotional dependence. When boredom becomes unbearable, almost any distraction starts to look acceptable. Strong people cultivate the ability to simply be, to read, to think, to create, to observe, to walk without a destination. They develop an inner life rich enough that solitude feels less like a sentence and more like breathing room. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote that a person who is not able to be alone will inevitably be mediocre, not as an insult, but as a simple observation about where depth comes from. Number 9. They take full responsibility without self-destruction. There's a narrow line here that's easy to miss. Taking responsibility for your mistakes is one of the hallmarks of a mature, strong person. But there's a version of it that tips into self-punishment, where responsibility becomes an excuse to be brutal with yourself. Strong people learn to do something specific, own it, understand it, and move forward. Not minimize, not catastrophize. Just, this happened, here's what I could have done differently, let's adjust. Cognitive behavioral theory suggests that the way we interpret events, not the events themselves, shapes our emotional response and our ability to adapt. Strong people learn to interpret their failures as data, not verdicts. Number 10. They build and follow their own value system. This is the one that underpins everything else on this list. Most people operate on values they inherited from family, culture, religion, social media trends. That's not necessarily wrong, but strong people do something different. They examine those values. They question them, and they consciously decide which ones to keep. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard argued that choosing oneself, genuinely, deliberately, is the foundation of an authentic life. Not the values assigned to you, the ones you've actually interrogated and chosen to live by. When you have a clear value system, your own, not borrowed, decision-making gets simpler. Peer pressure gets quieter. You stop needing others to define what's right for you. So here's what all 10 of these have in common. None of them are about becoming hard. None of them are about needing no one. Real strength, the kind that actually endures, comes from building a stable relationship with yourself first. The person who sits with silence, trusts their own judgment, processes pain without needing applause, sets limits without guilt, shows up without external pressure, marks their own progress, manages their emotions, finds meaning in solitude, takes honest responsibility, and lives by examined values. That person is genuinely hard to shake. You don't have to master all 10 today. Pick the one that hit hardest. Work on that one first, and then come back. If this video gave you something, like it so it reaches someone else who needs it. Share it with that one person in your life who's quietly going through something. Comment what resonated most, or drop your favorite affirmation from today. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because we're just getting started.